The classroom smelled like disinfectant, recycled air, and tension. 40 alien cadets sat upright in precise rows, their uniforms crisp, their gazes fixed on the front with a mixture of curiosity and dread. The academy's lights buzzed faintly above, casting sharp beams through the narrow windows of the training hall. Everything in the room, from the color-coded oxygen vents to the reinforced titanium desks, spoke of discipline, war readiness, and control. But no amount of structure could erase the unease hanging in the air like static before a lightning strike. The doors hissed open, and silence dropped like a guillotine. The creature that stepped inside defied taxonomy. It walked upright, vaguely humanoid in form, but its movements were wrong, too fluid, too quiet for something so massive. Hardened scales layered its body like blackened armor. Muscles rippled beneath its skin, corded with lethal grace. Rows of glistening teeth jutted from a snout twisted in a permanent snarl, though its eyes, small and unblinking, held the feral stillness of a predator that knew it had nothing to fear. The cadets did not breathe. Commander Erix, a four-armed instructor from the Chi-10 system, stood beside the monster with a smile that was all teeth and zero warmth. Class 92A, allow me to introduce the XR specimen. You'll be training alongside it for the remainder of your term. Observation, cooperation, survival. He didn't clarify what survival meant in this context. Most cadets didn't dare ask. The XR creature moved toward the front desk, claws tapping gently against the floor. A Talsari student in the front row leaned ever so slightly away, nostrils twitching. The XR stopped, sniffed the air, and bared its teeth, not in a smile, but in a slow, instinctive assessment of nearby prey. And then, before anyone could parse the full implications of that moment, the door opened again. A second figure entered. Where the XR had caused fear, this newcomer brought something more complicated, something colder, more calculating. He was human, unmistakably so, though taller than average, built like a siege weapon carved from stone and gristle. He wore no helmet, just a close-shaved scalp and a stare that cut through the room like a laser scalpel. His skin bore the leathery burn of sun exposure, his arms scarred and corded from decades of physical conflict. A tactical harness hugged his chest, covered in minimalist armor plating, not the heavy exosuits other species required. He carried nothing that looked like a weapon. He was the weapon. A hush rolled through the room, thicker this time. Not fear. Not exactly. Apprehension wrapped in fascination. Commander Erix gave the faintest nod. Sergeant Rafe, our Deathworlder liaison. He will be co-instructing. The XR turned to face the human fully. Its nostrils flared, head cocking to the side like a predator sizing up competition, or considering the nutritional value of its next meal. Rafe didn't blink. The two figures stood there, either speaking, either backing away. The cadets sat frozen, as if any sound might trigger the apocalypse. Then the XR growled, low and guttural, a sound that vibrated through the metal walls. It took a deliberate step forward. Claws flexed. Rafe moved. Not fast. Not threatening. He walked forward with an eerie calm and stopped less than a meter from the beast. His posture wasn't aggressive, but it wasn't submissive either. He folded his arms. His voice, when it came, was even and quiet, yet somehow filled every corner of the room. Don't test me. The XR twitched, a ripple of muscle rising along its shoulder like a wave. But it didn't move closer. Its snarl faded, just slightly, and for a long, taut moment it did nothing at all. Then it backed away, huffing through its nose, and turned to sit at the edge of the classroom like a beast called to heel. That was the moment the students began to shift in their seats again. The tension didn't leave. It merely changed shape. Commander Erix tilted his head, surprised. Unexpected. Rafe didn't acknowledge him. Instead, he turned to the class and scanned them one by one. His gaze wasn't cruel, just impossibly direct. Let's clear something up, he said. You're not here to become friends. You're here to become useful. In combat. Under pressure. Beside those you don't trust or understand. A hand went up, trembling slightly. It belonged to a girl, young by human standards, older by alien reckoning. A Tuolin, long-necked and bookish. "But why train with it?" she asked. "That thing eats its own kind if they're wounded. There's footage." Rafe looked at the XR. "Accurate," he said. "But useful." "Useful?" another student hissed, unable to contain themselves. "It's a nightmare. You saw what it almost did." "I did," Rafe said. "I saw it size up a threat and choose not to die today. That's called learning." There was a pause. Somewhere in the back, a student snorted in disbelief. Rafe's eyes narrowed. "You think combat is clean? Fair? That your enemy will always look like you? Smell like you? Think like you?" He took a step forward, voice sharpening. "I grew up on Earth. You don't know what that means yet, so I'll simplify. Every plant, every animal, the air, the ground, the damn water, it kills you if you let it. And it doesn't apologize." The classroom was silent again, but now it pulsed with something deeper. Morbid curiosity. "Humans survived not because we're strong," Rafe continued. "We're not. Not compared to some of you. Not compared to that." He gestured at the XR. "We survive because we adapt. We observe. And when necessary, we end threats." The XR shifted again, this time watching him with something more than animalistic hunger. Respect? Recognition? It was hard to say. But it didn't growl again. One of the cadets in the back whispered to another, not quietly enough. "Is he saying we're the threat?" Rafe heard it. Of course he did. "You all think humans are dangerous," he said, not raising his voice. "That's fine. But remember, your leadership brought me here. Not the other way around." He turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway. "We start drills at 0500. No excuses. Don't be late." He walked out without waiting for a response. The XR hesitated, then followed. The cadets sat there, staring at the empty doorway. Nobody spoke. Even the brave ones didn't dare laugh. And somewhere, buried under layers of disbelief and discomfort, the first ember of understanding began to smolder. The cold morning drills began in silence. No whistles, no barking orders, just the hollow clank of boots on synthetic soil as cadets lined up in formation beneath the domed sky of the simulation field. The air shimmered with contained humidity. An artificial wind howled across the ridge, calibrated to mimic a Category 4 sandstorm. Each cadet struggled to stay upright. Each blinked stung. Visibility was poor. That was the point. Sergeant Rafe stood alone at the top of the slope, motionless, observing them like a statue carved from old wars. Beside him, the XR crouched low, its massive arms folded across its knees. The wind didn't seem to touch it. It watched the cadets with an alien patience, unblinking. 15 seconds to fail," Rafe said, voice carried clearly through his internal mic and directly into the cadets' helmets. "Fall behind. Lose formation. Panic. I mark you as non-viable." A student fell. The wind shrieked. The group faltered, but someone in the center, a thin Drenari male with heat-sensitive scales, barked orders. The formation reformed. Slowly, agonizingly, they pushed forward. Rafe gave a small nod, half to himself. "Better." He glanced down at the XR. "Think they'll last 20 minutes? The creature snorted. By the time the cadets crossed the flag checkpoint, 7 had dropped from exhaustion. 2 had passed out and were hauled back to the barracks on drones. The rest stood, panting, crusted in dust and sweat, waiting for Rafe's verdict. He walked down the slope slowly. 7 casualties, he said. 2 unconscious. You barely passed a simulated wind test. He looked them over. If this were a real extraction field on Pyraxis, you'd all be dead. The cadets said nothing. Rafe turned to the Drenari boy who had held formation. Name? Cadet Sol, sir. You lead? I tried. You kept them moving, Rafe said. You bought time. You survived. He turned to the rest. This is your takeaway. Leadership under duress is more valuable than physical strength. Any idiot can throw a punch. Only a soldier can carry the broken. The XR stood and made a low, grating sound that may have been approval. Later that day, during the tactical debrief, Cadet Tally, the same Tulin who had questioned the Predator's presence, raised her hand again. Her voice quivered but didn't break. "Sergeant Rafe, permission to ask something outside the curriculum." He nodded. "Why are humans considered Deathworlders if you have culture? Empathy? You spoke of leadership, of protection. But the files describe Earth as a hostile biosphere, and your species as historically unstable. War-prone." There was a long pause. Rafe didn't move. The rest of the room watched closely. "I don't disagree," he said finally. "We're unstable. We're war-prone. You've read the reports. We've nuked our own skies, turned continents into ash. But you're mistaking history for essence." He walked over to the display wall and tapped it. A holographic rendering of Earth sprang to life, blue-green, swirling with storms. "That world kills us constantly. It burns us, drowns us, buries us. And every time we rebuild. Not because we're strong. Because we refuse to stay dead." He tapped again. The image shifted. Archives of early space colonization, primitive rovers, terraforming prototypes. Every generation of human grew up knowing they'd probably fail. That the odds were bad. That pain was guaranteed. And yet, we built. We dreamed. We crossed into the dark. He turned back to Tally. "That's what makes a Deathworlder. Not the planet. The will to conquer it." There was a subtle shift in the room. Some cadets sat straighter. A few looked at the XR differently, not with less fear, but with a fresh layer of respect. Cadet Varn, a brutish Shalathi whose species had 3 hearts and ceremonial tusks, grunted. "Then why does the XR listen to you?" Rafe's jaw tensed slightly. "Because it recognizes something familiar. It sees what I've survived. Or it sees you as pack leader," Varn muttered. "It doesn't matter why it listens," Rafe said. "What matters is that it does. And one day, in the field, that might save your life." Later that evening, in the mess hall, the unspoken divide between students remained, though thinner. Some clustered around Cadet Sol, asking about field strategy. Others whispered about Rafe's stare, about the strange bond between him and the XR. One cadet, a quiet Xalan female with silvery eyes, turned to her peer. "You noticed? The XR doesn't posture around Rafe anymore." The boy beside her nodded. "It acts more like it's learning from him." Meanwhile, in the observation deck above the hall, Commander Eric spoke privately with 2 faculty members. "It's working," one said. Eric's didn't smile. "For now. He's bridging them. He's destabilizing them," Eric's replied. "The students are forming alliances based on fear, not trust. And the XR's behavior is shifting too rapidly. Its instincts are unpredictable." The other instructor, a data analyst, tapped a console. "Aggression levels have dropped 34% in proximity to the human. Cortical scans show mirror neuron activity." Eric's folded 2 arms across his chest. "You're saying the Predator is empathizing?" "No," the analyst said. "I'm saying it's watching." That night, in the training dome, the XR approached Rafe unprovoked. No growl. No posturing. It stood beside him as he reviewed terrain maps for the next simulation. "I know you understand me," Rafe said quietly, not looking up. "You're not a dumb brute. They just see you that way because you don't speak their language." The XR said nothing. But it stayed. "I've killed things bigger than you," Rafe added. "Faster, too. But I didn't come here to kill you. I came to teach them what real war looks like." A low rumble vibrated in the creature's chest. Rafe finally looked at it. "You were made for killing. So was I. But maybe we can show them that survival isn't always about who's left standing." He tapped the map. "Tomorrow, they go into live terrain." The XR growled again, softer this time. Almost like acknowledgement. The next day would push every cadet to their limits. But in that moment, beneath the artificial stars, a fragile alliance had been forged, not out of loyalty, or even understanding, but out of mutual recognition. Two predators. Two survivors. Both teaching a class that had never truly known what it meant to bleed. They dropped at dawn. No ceremony. No warning. The sky above the training preserve rippled with false light as transport drones vanished into cloud cover, leaving the cadets in a region mapped as Zone Red. 70 square kilometers of simulated wilderness programmed to mimic the worst aspects of every known death world. Acid-laced rainfall. Eruptive terrain. Predators tuned to hunt. Real enough to scar. Real enough to kill, if someone was careless. Rafe landed silently in the brush, the XR thudding beside him a heartbeat later. His earpiece buzzed with scattered cadet chatter, confusion, split formations, the early tremble of fear behind their voices. "Focus," he said into the comm line. "You trained for this. Group East. Establish a perimeter near the geothermal ridge. You'll have 20 minutes before the scent algorithms activate the hostiles. Move." Cadet Sull's voice crackled through. "Sir, we've got 3 injured already. Minor terrain fractures and 1 heat spike." Rafe checked his wrist HUD. The simulation was scaling too fast. Someone on the control deck had increased the difficulty curve. Not a test. A push. He gritted his teeth. "Fall back to position Delta. Regroup. The terrain's not your enemy. Panic is." The XR turned its head, nose twitching. Without warning, it bolted through the undergrowth, low and silent. Rafe followed, pulse quickening. They found the first cadet slumped beside a broken cliff edge, his arm pinned beneath a fallen branch twice his weight. Acid mist curled from a nearby fissure. Another 2 students crouched nearby, paralyzed by indecision. "Help him!" Rafe barked as he ran in. "But he's not dead yet." Rafe reached the trapped boy and slid beneath the branch, leveraging with a shoulder against the slick stone. The cadets hesitated, until the XR moved beside them and roared. Together they heaved. The boy was dragged free, sobbing, clutching his arm. Rafe pulled a cauterizer from his pack. "Hold him," he ordered. "This will burn." They did. He screamed. Then it was done. The XR didn't flinch. It crouched beside the boy afterward and sniffed the wound, then stared at Rafe with something unreadable in its dark, wet eyes. "Move," Rafe said, nodding to the east. "Stick close to the creature. It can smell what's coming." Hours passed. The forest thickened. Simulated storms crashed in waves across the ravines, and heat signatures swirled in and out of range like ghosts. Cadets lost time. They lost orientation. But they followed orders. They held formation. When they fell, they were lifted. The predator led them now. Not with growls or roars, but with presence. With vigilance. By nightfall, only 35 cadets remained mobile. 12 were marked as injured and extracted by auto-drones. The rest took shelter near a ruined station buried in moss and debris. Synthetic vines coiled like serpents across rusted walls. There was no warmth, only friction and breath. No words, just eyes darting toward the edge of the perimeter where the shadows writhed like serpents. And then the scream. High. Sharp. Human. It came from the northwest quadrant. Rafe was on his feet instantly. "Who's out there?" "Tally," someone gasped. "She went to set perimeter sensors." He didn't wait. He sprinted. The predator moved beside him, silent. They found her surrounded. A simulated pack of apex hunters, quadrupeds with mirror-shard skin and mouth jaws that shimmered in the dark. 7 of them. Too many. Tally had a flare stick, already lit, waving it like a torch. Her eyes were wide. She saw Rafe but said nothing. He slid beside her. "Back slowly. They'll rush us," she breathed. "I know." One lunged. The XR intercepted midair, smashing the creature into a tree. Bone cracked. Bark exploded. 2 more leapt. Rafe fired his shock bat in mid-swing, taking one down. He kicked the other off his shoulder. Blood, hit the ground in a warm spray. Go! He shouted at Tally. She hesitated. But you! Go! She ran. The XR tore into the creatures like a thunderclap given form, fluid, violent, primal. It bled from the thigh but didn't falter. Rafe ducked beneath another swipe, dodged a snapping jaw, then turned to see the largest of the beasts charging from behind. The XR saw it too. It didn't think. It threw itself in the way. The impact was brutal. Rafe shouted. The creature went down hard. The beast reared for the kill, jaws wide. And Rafe leapt. He didn't think. He jammed the shock baton directly into the beast's throat and triggered the overload. The sound was pure agony. The beast convulsed and dropped. Smoke rose. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of Rafe's breathing, and the XR's rasping breath beside him. He knelt. Blood coated its scales. One eye was shut. A massive gash split its chest. "You stupid bastard," he whispered. "Why'd you do that?" The creature looked at him, coughed something wet, and made a sound that might have been laughter, or the last breath before collapse. Rafe hoisted it up. The cadets returned. Tally led them. No one questioned it. No one spoke. They carried the predator back through the dark. 3 hours later, the simulation ended. The dome lights rose. Medical drones swept in, humming with sterile precision. The cadets were processed, scanned, and cleared. Some cried. Others stared into space. A few looked at Rafe like he was a god. He wasn't. He stood in the debriefing chamber, bruised, burned, bloody. The XR lay on a recovery table in the adjoining wing, breathing steadily. Not dead. Not yet. Commander Erix watched from the shadows. "You disobeyed perimeter protocol," he said. Rafe didn't answer. "You endangered the mission." Rafe looked at him. "I saved them. They were meant to learn hardship, not be coddled." "They learned," Rafe said. "They learned that strength means protecting something other than yourself. They learned that survival isn't about who lives longest, it's about who lives right." Eric said nothing. Across the hall, Tally stood quietly with the other cadets. She raised a hand. "We'd like to make a request," she said. Eric's frowned. "Speak." "We want the XR to stay on as part of our unit." Eric's blinked. "It is not a pet." "No," Tally said. "It's a soldier." Silence. Then Eric's nodded, once. The cadets saluted. One by one, they turned to leave. Rafe followed last, stopping just before the door. "Commander." "Yes?" "Next time you throw them into hell, don't expect them to come back alone." He left. Behind him, the predator stirred on the table. Its eyes opened. And for the first time, it looked not like a weapon, but a witness. Somewhere in the simulation logs, a flag was triggered, behavioral deviation marked. Potential evolution detected. But no one noticed. They were too busy learning how to survive together. And somewhere in that brutal, merciless place, that was enough.